gone mad. He's leading them right to it.
You see, the code specifically states that
The bridge on the River Kwai wasn't just filmed in hell, it was built there. A director who nearly died, a star who refused to show up, and a bridge that collapsed with actors still on it. These are 20 weird facts about the bridge on the River Kwai. And the bonus? The Oscars tried to erase one man's name entirely. Buckle up. This jungle gets dark fast. Number 1. David Lean didn't want to make this movie. He'd just finished directing romantic dramas in England, and when Columbia Pictures came calling with a war film set in the Burmese jungle, he thought they were insane. The script was problematic. The location was impossible. The whole thing screamed disaster. But Sam Spiegel, the producer, wouldn't take no for an answer. He flew to London, cornered Lean at his home, and spent 3 days convincing him that this wasn't just another war movie. It was about obsession, about madness disguised as duty. Something clicked. Lean said yes, but on one condition: total creative control. No studio interference, no executive notes, no compromises. Spiegel agreed, probably thinking he'd rein him in later. He was wrong. Lean took the script apart, rewrote entire sections, and transformed what could have been a standard prisoner of war drama into something darker, stranger, more complex. He insisted on shooting in real jungles, building a real bridge, and pushing every scene past comfortable into dangerous. The studio watched their budget balloon. They begged him to film on a backlot. Lean refused, because for him, authenticity wasn't optional, it was everything. And that stubbornness, that refusal to fake it, it gave the film its suffocating reality. You don't watch The Bridge on the River Kwai, you survive it. Number 2. Charles Laughton was supposed to play Colonel Nicholson. He was cast, contracts were signed, and production dates were set. Then he read the script again, and panicked. Laughton realized the role required months in the Sri Lankan jungle, in brutal heat, with minimal comfort. At 58, overweight, and struggling with health issues, he knew his body couldn't handle it. So, he did something almost unheard of in 1950s Hollywood. He quit. Days before departure, the studio went into crisis mode. They needed a British officer with gravitas, someone who could carry the moral weight of the film on his shoulders. David Lean had one name in mind: Alec Guinness. But Guinness wasn't interested. He'd read the book and found Nicholson insufferable, a man so obsessed with military protocol that he'd lost his humanity. Lean didn't argue. He simply said, "That's exactly why you should play him." It took weeks of persuasion, multiple script revisions, and a promise that Guinness could shape the character. Finally, he agreed. And from the moment Guinness stepped onto set in Sri Lanka, something extraordinary happened. He didn't play Nicholson as a villain or a hero. He played him as a man so consumed by pride that he couldn't see his own destruction. The performance was quiet, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. Because Nicholson never raises his voice. He just destroys everything around him with perfect British composure.
I am the commanding officer of this camp.
Number 3. William Holden showed up drunk. Not once, not occasionally, constantly. He was fresh off an affair, a divorce, and a string of films he didn't care about. The Bridge on the River Kwai was just another paycheck, another jungle, another reason to drink. David Lean was furious. He'd demand retakes. Holden would stumble through them. The crew watched in silence, unsure if the film would survive its own star. But then something strange happened. Holden's exhaustion, his genuine discomfort, his barely concealed contempt for the location, it all fed into the character of Shears, the cynical American who just wants to escape, who sees the war as meaningless. Holden didn't have to act. He was living it. Every bead of sweat, every grimace, every moment of visible suffering was real. Lean started using it. He'd shoot Holden early in the morning, when the hangovers were worst. He'd film long takes in the oppressive heat. And somehow, it worked. Holden's performance became the emotional anchor of the film. Not because he was trying, because he wasn't. He hated being there. He wanted out. And that desperation, that raw authenticity, it's in every frame. By the end of shooting, Holden admitted it was one of the hardest experiences of his career. He never worked with Lean again. But he gave the director exactly what he needed: a broken man in a broken place.
You make me sick with your heroics.
Number 4. The bridge was real, not a miniature, not a set piece. A full-scale, functional railway bridge built over the River Kwai. David Lean insisted on it. The crew thought he was insane. Engineers said it would take months. The budget was already spiraling out of control. Lean didn't care. He wanted authenticity, and that meant building something that could actually carry weight, that would creak and sway under the feet of hundreds of extras. So, they built it, using local workers, following actual engineering plans, constructing it piece by piece over weeks in the suffocating jungle heat. And when it was finished, it was magnificent. Sturdy, imposing, exactly as Lean had envisioned. There was just one problem. It had to be destroyed. The climax of the film required the bridge to collapse spectacularly, with explosives, falling timber, and chaos. One shot, no second chances. If they got it wrong, months of work and hundreds of thousands of dollars would be wasted. The pressure was unbearing. Lean planned the sequence for weeks, using multiple cameras, precise timing, and carefully placed charges. On the day of the shoot, everyone was on edge. Actors, crew, even the extras knew they were witnessing something that could never be repeated. The cameras rolled, the charges detonated, and the bridge collapsed perfectly, spectacularly, in a shower of wood and fire. Except for one thing. One camera malfunctioned. One critical angle was lost. Lean almost had a breakdown on the spot, but when he saw the footage from the other cameras, he realized they'd captured something extraordinary. The destruction was real. The chaos was real. And that authenticity, it made the scene unforgettable. Number 5. Sessue Hayakawa didn't speak much English. He was a silent film star from the 1920s, a Japanese actor who had been huge in Hollywood before talkies arrived. Then he vanished, returning to Japan, doing theater, disappearing from American cinema entirely. Decades later, David Lean tracked him down for the role of Colonel Saito. Hayakawa was 68, hadn't made a Hollywood film in years, and arrived in Sri Lanka unsure if he could even remember his lines. The language barrier was brutal. He'd rehearse scenes phonetically, memorizing sounds rather than meanings. David Lean would work with him for hours, shaping each line, finding the emotion beneath the broken English. And somehow, it worked. Because Saito wasn't supposed to be comfortable. He's a man trapped between duty and humanity, trying to maintain control in an impossible situation. Hayakawa's stiffness, his formality, his careful delivery, it all made Saito more tragic. There's a moment near the end where Saito breaks down, alone, defeated. Hayakawa didn't understand all the words he was saying, but he understood the feeling, and he delivered one of the most heartbreaking performances in the film. David Lean later said Hayakawa brought something unexpected to the role. Not villainy, but sadness. A man who knows he's losing before the battle even begins. After the film, Hayakawa received an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win, but he didn't need to. After decades in obscurity, he'd proven he could still command the screen, not with words, with presence. Number 6. The heat was unbearable. Sri Lanka in 1957 wasn't equipped for a massive Hollywood production. No air conditioning, limited medical facilities, and temperatures that regularly hit over 100 degrees. Actors collapsed. Crew members fell ill. Some quit and flew home. David Lean refused to stop. He'd been promised a jungle, and he was going to use every miserable inch of it. The morning call time started at dawn, trying to capture usable footage before the worst heat arrived. But even at 6 a.m., it was sweltering. Alec Guinness developed a skin infection from the humidity. William Holden suffered from dehydration so severe, he had to be hospitalized. Extras fainted during the march sequences. And through it all, Lean kept pushing. He wasn't cruel, just relentless. He believed suffering created authenticity. If the actors looked exhausted, desperate, on the edge of breaking, it's because they were. No amount of method acting could replicate genuine physical misery. And you can see it in every frame. The sweat isn't makeup, the exhaustion isn't performance, it's real. Some actors later said it was the worst shoot of their careers. Others called it the most honest. Because when you watch The Bridge on the River Kwai, you're not seeing a recreation of a prison camp. You're seeing people genuinely enduring something brutal. And that truth, that refusal to fake comfort, it's what makes the film so viscerally powerful decades later. Number 7. The script had no ending, not for months. David Lean and screenwriter Carl Foreman fought constantly over how the film should conclude. Should Nicholson realize his mistake and destroy the bridge himself? Should he die defending it? Should the film end with ambiguity or moral clarity? They couldn't agree. Lean wanted tragedy. Foreman wanted redemption. The arguments stretched on for weeks, even as filming continued. Scenes were shot out of order. Actors performed without knowing how their characters' journeys would end. Alec Guinness was particularly frustrated. He needed to understand Nicholson's arc, to know whether the man would find enlightenment or remain blind to his own madness. Finally, just weeks before they needed to shoot the climax, Lean made a decision. Nicholson would die confused, falling onto the detonator accidentally, destroying his own creation without ever understanding what he'd done. It was messy, unheroic, and deeply unsettling. Foreman hated it. He thought audiences would feel cheated. Lean insisted it was the only honest ending. A man who'd lost himself to obsession couldn't suddenly find clarity in his final moments. That would be false, clean Hollywood. This had to hurt. When they finally shot the sequence, Guinness played it with devastating ambiguity. You can't tell if Nicholson realizes what he's done or if he dies still clinging to his delusion. That uncertainty, that refusal to provide easy answers, it's what elevates the film from a war movie to a tragedy. And it almost didn't exist until the very last moment. Number 8. There was a second bridge, a miniature, built for safety shots and distant angles. But during one sequence, David Lean decided he needed actors on it, not stunt doubles, actual cast members. The miniature wasn't designed for that. It was lighter, less stable, meant only for camera tricks. But Lean wanted a specific shot. Actors reluctantly climbed onto the structure, the cameras rolled, and mid-take, the bridge gave way. Not a full collapse, but a sudden lurch, a sickening crack of wood. Actors grabbed for support. One nearly fell into the water below. Someone screamed, "Cut!" but the cameras kept running. Lean was watching through the viewfinder, and later, he admitted he saw it happening in real time and didn't stop the shot, because the terror on their faces was real. The panic was real, and it's in the final film. That moment of chaos, that split second where everything nearly went wrong, it made it into the movie. The actors were furious. Safety protocols, even in 1957, weren't supposed to be ignored for a shot. But Lean didn't apologize. He just moved on to the next scene. That was his method. Push until something broke, then use the breaking. It created incredible cinema. It also created a set where people were genuinely afraid, not of the story, of the director. Because with David Lean, nothing was more important than the shot. Not comfort, not safety, not even basic human consideration. Just the relentless pursuit of something real. Number 9. The whistling, the iconic Colonel Bogey march that prisoners whistle throughout the film, almost wasn't in it. David Lean thought it was too cheerful, too light for the dark story he was telling. But the military advisor on set, a former PO who would survive Japanese camps, insisted it was authentic. Prisoners really did whistle to maintain morale, to mock their captors, to assert a small piece of defiance. Lean was skeptical. He tested it in a few scenes, expecting to cut it later. Then something unexpected happened during editing. The whistling created an eerie counterpoint to the suffering on screen. It was jaunty, almost absurd, playing over images of starving men building a bridge for their enemies. That dissonance, that uncomfortable clash between sound and image, it made the scenes more disturbing, not less. Lean realized he'd stumbled onto something powerful. The whistling stayed, and it became one of the most memorable elements of the film. After the movie's release, the Colonel Bogey March became a cultural phenomenon. People whistled it in the streets. It was recorded, parodied, embedded in popular culture. But in the context of the film, it's never quite triumphant. It's hollow, a desperate attempt to find humor in horror. And that complexity, that refusal to be simply heroic or tragic, it's what makes The Bridge on the River Kwai so enduringly powerful. A silly tune transformed into something haunting, not by changing it, but by placing it in hell and letting it echo. Number 10. During the climactic explosion scene, something went catastrophically wrong. The bridge was rigged with explosives, cameras positioned at multiple angles, hundreds of extras in place. It was a one-shot deal. Everything had to work perfectly. The detonator was pressed. The charges fired, the bridge began to collapse. But one section didn't fall correctly. It twisted wrong, sending debris in an unplanned direction. A camera operator had to dive for cover, extras scattered. For a moment, it looked like the whole sequence had failed. David Lean was frozen, watching the chaos unfold, knowing there was no second bridge to destroy. Then, as the dust settled, he realized something extraordinary. The imperfection made it real. Hollywood explosions are choreographed, controlled, predictable. This wasn't. This was genuine destruction, complete with unexpected angles, unplanned debris falls, and real danger captured on film. When Lean reviewed the footage, he kept every frame. He didn't try to clean it up or hide the mistakes. He embraced them, because that's what real destruction looks like: messy, chaotic, impossible to fully control. The scene became one of the most celebrated action sequences in cinema history. Not because it went according to plan, because it didn't. And decades later, directors still study that sequence, trying to understand how Lean captured something so visceral, so authentic. The answer is simple and terrifying. He stopped trying to control everything and let the chaos be real. Number 11. The Oscars shut out the real writer. Carl Foreman wrote the screenplay, but his name wasn't on it, not officially. In 1957, Foreman was blacklisted, accused of communist sympathies during the Hollywood witch hunts. Studios wouldn't touch him. His career was destroyed. So when he wrote The Bridge on the River Kwai, he did it in secret, hiding behind a front man. Pierre Boulle, the French novelist who wrote the original book, got the credit. Never mind that Boulle barely spoke English and didn't write a word of the screenplay. On Oscar night, when the film won Best Adapted Screenplay, Boulle's name was called. He accepted the award awkwardly, knowing it wasn't his. Foreman watched from home, erased. The Academy didn't correct the record until 1984, 16 years after Foreman's death. They finally gave him the Oscar he had earned decades earlier. But by then, it didn't matter. Foreman had spent his final years bitter, watching other writers take credit for his words. The Bridge on the River Kwai made millions. It won 7 Oscars. It became a classic. And the man who actually wrote it was written out of history. Help! Number 12. David Lean almost died 3 times during filming. The first was heat exhaustion that sent him to a makeshift medical tent. The second was a Jeep accident on a mountain road, where he missed a turn and nearly plunged down a ravine. The third, and worst, was during the river sequences. Lean insisted on being in the water, directing from within the scene itself. He waded in during a particularly dangerous shot, didn't notice the current strengthening, and suddenly he was being swept downstream. His boots filled with water. He couldn't find his footing. The crew watched in horror as their director flailed, going under once, twice. A grip dove in, grabbed him, dragged him to shore. Lean coughed up water, shaking, pale. 5 minutes later, he wanted to go again. The crew refused. They physically restrained him until he calmed down. But that was Lean. He didn't just want to film the river. He wanted to be claimed by it, to understand what his characters endured. That obsession nearly killed him. Number 13. The monkeys wouldn't cooperate. David Lean wanted authentic jungle atmosphere, which meant real wildlife. Handlers brought in monkeys to populate the background of camp scenes. It was a disaster. The monkeys escaped their enclosures, stole food from craft services, climbed onto expensive camera equipment, and screamed during takes. One particularly bold monkey grabbed Alec Guinness's hat mid-scene and refused to give it back. Production stopped for an hour while crew members tried to retrieve it. Another monkey bit a cameraman. Several urinated on props. Lean wanted to use them anyway, convinced the chaos added authenticity. But after 3 days of mayhem, the insurance company intervened. The monkeys had to go. If you watch carefully, you can spot them in a few early shots before they were banned from set. Lean never forgave the insurance company. He wanted his jungle to feel alive, unpredictable, dangerous. Instead, he got safety protocols. Number 14. The film's most iconic line was improvised. When Major Clipton sees the destroyed bridge and mutters in disbelief, the words weren't in the script. The actor, James Donald, had been watching the destruction sequence from the sidelines, genuinely shocked by the scale of what they'd blown up. When Lean asked him to react in character, Donald couldn't find scripted words adequate for what he'd witnessed. So, he said what he was thinking. Simple, devastating, perfect. Lean kept it. One take, no alternative versions. Because sometimes the best writing isn't writing at all. It's just honest reaction to something overwhelming. That line became the film's epitaph, the final judgment on everything that came before. And it came from nowhere, unrehearsed, in a moment when an actor forgot he was acting. Number 15. Jeffrey Horn broke his arm and kept filming. He was playing Lieutenant Joyce, young, eager, determined. During a stunt sequence, he fell wrong, felt something snap. He didn't tell anyone, just wrapped it himself and kept going. Days passed. The pain got worse. His arm swelled. Finally, a crew member noticed and dragged him to a doctor, fractured in 2 places. The medic was furious, asking why he hadn't reported it immediately. Horn's answer was simple. If production stopped, if they had to recast, he'd lose the role of his career. So, he suffered through. They put him in a lightweight cast, hid it under his sleeve, and adjusted camera angles. If you watch his final scenes closely, he's favoring one arm. That's not character work. That's genuine injury. When filming wrapped, Horn finally got proper treatment. The arm healed crooked. It bothered him for the rest of his life. Number 16. The Japanese government protested the film. Before release, diplomats reached out to Columbia Pictures, expressing concern about how Japanese soldiers were portrayed. They argued the film perpetuated negative stereotypes, showed Japanese officers as cruel and inhuman. The studio panicked, worried about losing the entire Asian market. They asked David Lean to make changes, to soften Saito, to add nuance. Lean refused. He said the film wasn't anti-Japanese. It was anti-war, anti-obsession. Saito wasn't a villain. He was a man trapped by duty, broken by impossible circumstances. The studio didn't push harder. The film released as Lean intended. And something unexpected happened. Japanese critics appreciated the complexity. They recognized Saito as tragic, not evil. The protest faded, because Lean had been right. He hadn't made propaganda. He'd made something darker, more honest. A film where everyone loses. Number 17. William Holden refused to return for reshoots. Months after principal photography wrapped, David Lean was in the editing room and realized he had a problem. He needed additional footage, establishing shots, reaction close-ups, minor dialogue fixes. Small things, but essential. He picked up the phone and called Holden, who was back in California, safe, comfortable, thousands of miles from any jungle. Holden's answer was immediate. No, absolutely not. He was done with jungles, done with Lean, done with heat exhaustion and hangovers and months of misery. Lean tried negotiating. He offered more money, a shorter schedule, better accommodations. Holden didn't care. The director got desperate. He flew to Los Angeles personally, showed up at Holden's house, tried to convince him face to face. Holden wouldn't even open the door. He sent word through his agent. The answer was still no. Eventually, Lean had to work around it. He used body doubles shot from behind, clever editing to hide faces, existing footage stretched, and reused in ways he hadn't planned. It wasn't ideal, but it worked. The film didn't suffer. And Holden never apologized, never regretted his decision. Years later, in interviews, he said the bridge on the River Kwai taught him an important lesson. Some projects, no matter how prestigious, no matter how critically acclaimed, aren't worth your sanity. He turned down every jungle film offered to him for the rest of his career. Some experiences you only need once. Number 18. The film's color timing was revolutionary. Wait, color? The bridge on the River Kwai was shot in Technicolor, but David Lean wanted it muted, drained, almost black and white. He worked with cinematographer Jack Hildyard to create a palette that felt oppressive. The greens aren't lush, they're sickly. The sky isn't vibrant, it's bleached. Even the river looks diseased. This was intentional. Lean believed color in war films was dishonest, too beautiful. He wanted viewers to feel the heat, the exhaustion, the decay. So they pushed the color timing to its limits, creating something that looked almost monochromatic despite being full color. The studio hated it. They'd invested in expensive Technicolor, and Lean made it look cheap. But audiences responded to the oppressive atmosphere. The washed-out palette became influential. War films for decades after copied that desaturated look, trying to recapture what Lean accidentally pioneered. Number 19. Alec Guinness hated his performance. At the premiere, he sat in the dark theater watching himself on screen, growing more uncomfortable with every scene. The stiffness, the rigidity, the cold formality. It all felt wrong. Afterward, he found David Lean in the lobby and pulled him aside. He told him straight, "I failed." Nicholson came across as too stiff, too mechanical, too unsympathetic. The audience will hate him. They'll hate me. Lean looked at him like he was crazy. He said Guinness had done exactly what was needed, that the performance was perfect, precisely calibrated, but Guinness couldn't see it. He'd lived inside Nicholson's head for months, felt the character's obsession, his blindness, his tragic pride, and from the inside, it felt like a mistake. For years, he carried that belief. He considered The Bridge on the River Kwai his worst work, a miscalculation, a rare failure in an otherwise distinguished career. Then, Oscar night arrived, Best Actor. His name was called. He walked to the stage, accepted the statue, gave a gracious speech, but privately, he remained unconvinced. The Academy got it wrong. They had rewarded a performance that didn't work. It took decades for him to change his mind. In interviews during the 1980s and 90s, he finally admitted he'd been wrong. Watching the film with distance, with years of perspective, he recognized what Lean had seen all along. Nicholson's rigidity was the point. His inability to bend, to see reason, to recognize his own madness, that's what made him tragic. The stiffness wasn't a bug. It was the feature. Guinness had been so deep inside the character, so lost in the performance, he couldn't see what he'd created. Sometimes you are too close to your own work. Sometimes it takes 30 years to understand what you actually did. Number 20. David Lean never made another film like it. After The Bridge on the River Kwai, he went bigger. Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, Ryan's Daughter, massive epics shot in impossible locations with impossible budgets. Deserts, frozen tundras, Irish coastlines, each one more ambitious than the last. But he never returned to the intimate brutality of Kwai, never asked actors to genuinely suffer again, never built something real just to destroy it. The shift was deliberate. In later interviews, he admitted the experience broke something in him. Not his love of filmmaking, not his ambition, not his perfectionism, but his willingness to make actors suffer for authenticity. He'd pushed too hard, demanded too much, risked too much. He'd nearly killed himself in that river, nearly lost actors to heat stroke and exhaustion, nearly destroyed a production chasing something real. The guilt stayed with him for decades. He'd lie awake remembering William Holden's face, drenched in sweat, genuinely miserable, Alec Guinness collapsing between takes, the moment that bridge exploded, and he realized how close they'd come to disaster. So his later films, while grander in scope, were safer in execution, more controlled, more carefully planned, more protective of the people involved. Stunt coordinators had actual authority. Safety protocols were followed. No one was asked to risk their life for a shot. The Bridge on the River Kwai was the last time Lean gambled everything, the last time he prioritized the film over the people making it. And maybe that's why it endures. You can feel the danger radiating from every frame, the sense that any moment, the whole production might collapse. That edge, that genuine uncertainty, that razor-wire tension between art and catastrophe, you can't manufacture it. You can't fake it. You can only survive it once. And Lean survived it, then walked away. He made greater films, but never again did he make one that felt so close to falling apart. And that fragility, that's what makes it immortal. Bonus fact: The bridge still stands, sort of. After filming wrapped, the production left the structure behind, half destroyed, abandoned in the Sri Lankan jungle. Locals used pieces for firewood, for building materials. Nature reclaimed the rest. For decades, it rotted, forgotten. Then tourism arrived. People started visiting, wanting to see where the famous bridge had stood. The Thai government, capitalizing on the connection despite the film being shot in Sri Lanka, built a replica near Kanchanaburi, where the real prisoner camps had been. Now tourists walk across it, taking photos, never realizing they're on a fake bridge, commemorating a fake bridge built for a film about real suffering. David Lean would have appreciated the irony, a story about the madness of construction, becoming a tourist attraction about construction. The cycle never ends.